5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for finding time to join us today on extremely important time, which is Friday night. So if you're changing your evening for us or spending the evening with us, we've got an extremely interesting guest for Credit Chats to speak with us and to compensate the time you might spend for something else. So Malcolm Trotter, a person who used to lead at least 5 professional bodies, which I know, and which are shown in his profile, unless I missed something, and there might be more. Malcolm, please forgive me. I have to start with apologies. Malcolm, thank you very much for joining us, and welcome to Credit Chats.
Thank you, Andre. I mean, this is a real pleasure and an honor. I'm sure lots of people say that, but I absolutely mean it. And to be able to hopefully share something of interest, of value with people, and yeah, we'll see what comes out of our chat together. But thank you.
Let's have a credit chat. Today's topic, and obviously Malcolm is, agreed to join us because today we will be speaking about the professional communities, an event in the history which has, which has like several hundreds of years of history, and it is transforming over the time. But first of all, we need to represent my co-speaker properly. And Malcolm, it would be not correct to say in English, despite all of your corrections, but I always ask people to represent themselves in short version. That's what, and that the sense of that question is a bit philosophic and might be found difficult, because it's not about who people think you are, other people. It's just like, what is your internal feeling about yourself? So like, if you are looking inside, who do you believe you are? Who do you feel you are? And how can you describe yourself in a short version? Giving you an example, the word creditologist you can see in my profile is actually the shortest version of me in terms of, I mean, in professional life, not in personal life. So please, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult, isn't it, to sum yourself up in a matter of a few words, because we're complicated beings. There are many facets of us and so on. But I think to sum myself up, really, I think I often look at what I believe, what's deep inside me, what I'm passionate about. And I think what I'm passionate about is, for myself and for everybody, is to be the best that you can be. And that doesn't mean just professionally. It means as a person.
And do I presume being already having a bit of gray hair myself? And this means like comparing yourself to yourself yesterday.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a lifelong journey.
Yeah.
I'm not into self-improvement kind of programs and all that kind of thing, but we all know ourselves. We all know the flaws that we have. Yes. Or hopefully we do, and we need more awareness of ourselves so we can move forward, but equally not just looking back and looking at where we are now, but looking at where we want to be and where we want to get to. And for me, this is perhaps the forum for it, but I had a fairly life-changing spiritual experience in my late teenage, which was quite a surprise because it completely turned my life around from the direction I was going in. And it's that which has driven me throughout my university life and then into my first part of my career and my professional life. And it's what drives me is the purpose of being the best that I can be. And what that means for me is not about achievements. It's about who I am. It's about the person. But if you translate that into the professional world, that's why I'm so passionate about professionalism and professional bodies and helping people to just be the best that it can be as a professional.
Can you please elaborate a bit? Because you see, I got mixed feeling. I'm a big fan of Jim Collins and about what is called level 5 leadership.
Mm-hmm.
If you're familiar with his researches, and what he found is that about the passion. One of his findings is that level 5 leaders are passionate, but not about themselves and not about even the self-improvement. It's a purpose which
Purpose driven.
outside. It's something bigger than we are.
Yeah.
Like big. Is that somehow corresponding to what you just said?
Absolutely, Andre. Yeah, you've understood me correctly. That's I've had that sense since that late teenage, really. And so instead of the emptiness of wanting to be a wealthy businessman, which is where I was when I was a 15-year-old,
Yeah.
And seeing that as the route to happiness and what life was about, really, was just to get the best job, the best salary, and acquire lots of things. Yeah, and of course, the culture, particularly in the Western culture, is driven to, as parents, get the best qualifications, get the best job you can, the best career you can, marry somebody who's appropriate, and so on and so forth, and you'll live life happily ever after. And for many people, that really isn't true, and that isn't their experience. And it's an empty way forward. And I was really, really fortunate, really, you can say. I was grateful for the fact that I was taken off that track and onto the track of, having real purpose. And just as you described it, and obviously Jim Collins has, in my view, has got it right. Very much so. That's my experience.
You see, it's a little bit of contradiction of what you do. No, not really a contradiction, but again, my English is not that rich enough to explain that nuances. But that's why I say a little bit of contradiction. But what he is confirming is that having a purpose obviously brings us, much more sense to a human being's life. But it is also could be profitable. You just don't need to concentrate on money. That's what he confirmed with Good to Great. People first, like another his previous book before Good to Great was about beyond entrepreneurship. Just like how successful business are built, not around the money, not around the profit. It's something. It's in Russian. It will. I mean, if this book Beyond the Entrepreneurship was translated into Russian, and then if I can translate it back to English, it would be something bigger than business. Is there something bigger than business? So, like, successful business is built around things which are like bigger than which are bigger than business itself. This is the idea.
I mean, certainly. I mean, business is only a part of society, and in terms of our economy, all it's doing is helping us to live as a group and to take our world forward. That's its purpose. It's not an end in itself, and that's to say. But young people often are trapped, and I was trapped certainly as a 15-year-old in the thinking that that's what life was about. And say many people get burnt out and have all sorts of problems later on when they, think the rug is pulled from under them, if I can use that English expression, in their career or their personal life, and then they have something that they're missing because it was built on these kind of material stones. And as I say, it's this which has driven me and let's say drives my passion for professionalism, seeking that we can be the best that we can be.
Yeah, that's, I mean, and helping others.
Well, absolutely.
That's what management is about. And you see, Thank you very much for that great answer. And ladies and gentlemen, in the end, we will have the Q&A session if we're lucky enough to cover everything. We're proud because today we need to finish within an hour, but we continue. And if you have questions, please type them in chat. These are credit chats in both ways. So we started to speak about professional communities, and I got like, special feeling because I know we've learned in school and during English lessons that England and United Kingdom is the country and the kingdom of traditions. And I know from lessons of history in the school that professional organizations in Europe and specifically in UK used to have quite long, extremely long history, starting from that craftsman workshops.
Yeah, the Masons, yeah.
And Freemasons, again, it's like floor of, this romantic of whatever it takes, and it exists at all, and it evolved into that even, I don't know, mystical history of Freemasons and everything. But anyway, this everything comes down to a simple thing. People of the same profession get together and do something together.
Yeah.
And as you are so big fan of that, and I'm pretty sure you got that, historical perspective, which many scientists prefer to start with. Do you have that idea why professionals, why people of the same profession are getting together? What are they look for? What's the purpose of like, in certain terms, again, to make my question even wider, we understand that at the same time they all are competitors. This is the marketplace. So craftsman competes with the craftsman. One professional like credit managers, these today's like co-workers or whatever can compete for the same position tomorrow. But people continue to get, and these professional bodies become quite big. So what's like very, very, very very basic, most important reasons for getting together and create these communities?
Yeah, very good. That, Andrew, is in terms of the background, you're right. As far as I'm aware, the UK probably has the longest kind of history of this, and you picked up on it there. The Masonic groups of traditional trades. We had the guilds and the livery companies going back 200 years or more. We have the end of the 19th century, the City and Guilds of London Institute and the Royal Society of Arts in London were formed and had examinations. So we've got 150 years of professional examinations behind the history in the UK. So sitting alongside that traditional academic education of universities. And, when I was growing up, just under 5% of UK 18-year-olds went to university. Now it's more like 45%. It's almost 50% go to study at least for a first degree at university. But, we've had this long tradition. The other 95% who, when I was growing up, who didn't go to university, many of them would have gone to evening courses or day courses for a few years to study. And that tradition has been going on since the end of the 19th century of these institutes in the evening, in the daytime, but largely in the evening or the weekend in those days, because they had to work full time and they weren't given time off in the early days. So a little bit of history there. But the question you asked really was why? Yeah, why And I think there is more than one factor here, but the first and foremost, and as you say, on in theory, many of them will be competitors. You know, if you've got a group of bakers in a locality getting together, they're all competing for customers. You might think, but perhaps we'll come back to that in a moment. But I think it's pursuit of excellence. I think it is. I think it's about, by joining together, you can discuss common issues facing that group of people when on their own, those issues might be quite difficult to address. So changes in the political, economic environment and how they specifically affect a baker, for example, you know, who are you going to discuss that with? Who is going to actually understand your problem if there are particular things that affect you as a baker? Well, it's your fellow bakers. So I think when it comes to grappling with issues, equally new equipment, new technologies, how they might be applied to your particular professional role or your job role, again, who's best to consider that with? And again, it's your fellow people. So I think one of the primary things, if not the original sort of idea of meeting together, was you've got those things in common, and you want to take those things forward and to improve your performance. Now, competition, when you had centuries ago only micro businesses, you didn't have commercial companies looking to grow, mergers and acquisitions taking over others, even on a small scale, locally, regionally, nationally, globally. So you didn't have any of that. But you had individual bakers. One would serve one village, one would serve the next, maybe two in one particular village. And, well, there were enough customers to go around for the two of them. They weren't looking to expand their businesses. They wanted to make a living in their locality. But of course, as time went on, people would try and grow their business, and they would start to take customers from their neighbour and their competitor. And that's when, again, I suppose you could argue ethical practices as well would come into play. And there's a long tradition of ethics, of sitting alongside the set of knowledge and skills that you need for your professional work to do it competently and to do it excellently, hopefully. Sitting alongside that and running all the way through it is ethical practice, your behaviors, how you relate to your neighbor. You don't steal necessarily customers from your neighbor, you respect your neighbor, and so on. There's all sorts of things. And I think those things were brought in. So you've got these kind of professional standards started to be developed of both knowledge and skills, but also very importantly of ethical practice, attitudes and behaviors, if you like, and what that should look like, and that helping people then to treat each other with respect. And I mean, I think that's it. But I think as time has gone on, many people join them to advance their careers. Let's face it. That's probably today, and in the 21st century, it's probably now where we've arrived at, that the primary thing about professional bodies, a reason for joining, would be to advance. It's not the sole reason for the existence of a professional body, but if you're an individual, what are you looking to do? You want to advance your career, quite rightly. Yes. How am I going to do that? Yeah, join with people who really know what they're talking about, really know what they're doing. I'm going to learn from them, and I'm hopefully going to perhaps even be headhunted for a job through networking through that group.
Yeah, and with the more I listen to you, the more the idea of, and the more like noble it becomes, because when we go to that ancient times, what I try to say is it sounds like sport leagues. Obviously, we are competing, but competition is not that negative. It's just like, by competing with others, we are becoming better. So it's more like sport rather than something. Obviously, it becomes much more harder to understand. But again, reconfirming what you just said, companies got associations. Although they are competing with each other, because in the end of the day, protection of common rights, protection of common interests has become much more important than the competition itself, which is really great. And as we are moving to the industry, so people are getting together, people exchange idea, and I found it's quite interesting and got a bit of interest in science. Just found that, modern science became actually, the science started to develop when people start to exchange ideas. So when you develop something, when you look for something, when you getting knowledge, you're not starting from the scratch.
Mm-hmm.
You take the knowledge of other people. So, and that's again an idea how professional communities, by getting people together, develop a profession, actually, because I'm pretty sure that credit managers of 50 years ago were doing absolutely different things. The same story for accountants, for bookkeepers, for paralegals, for everyone. And starting from this, because you are closer to that, what is your view on how professional communities are actually affecting the marketplace, the marketplace, the profession itself, and professional lives of their members?
Yeah, well, to a lesser or greater degree, some I think there's a big challenge.
Just your view, because you are involved in that. I am like I got only, let's say, customer experience of that. You are looking at this from inside. You know both.
Yeah, I know both. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. But my experience was, I have fairly wide experience now of different professional bodies, having worked with them or for them. Say it is varying degrees in terms of their impact on the lives of professionals. But I think most significant is the first one, which is recognition of and acceptance of the person to become a member. Well, what is the bar to membership? What is that you have to satisfy to become a member, or to get the, if you like, the formal recognition as a professional in that field? Because a lot of professional bodies have a lower grade of membership that enable people to join who are not fully qualified. But what is the full qualified member status, and what does it look like? And I think what professional bodies have effectively done over the years is to set that standard of, this is what it is. To become a member, you have to be able to demonstrate this, either through exams, through your work evidence, or some other basis that really it shows your competence, professional competence. But that bar, that level, or that standard will change over time, and it's constantly under review, or should be constantly under review, which means that, in 5 years' time, your professional qualification that you got 5 years ago, the 5 years have transpired. Some of the knowledge, some of the skills will have changed. The attitudes and behaviors shouldn't have changed, the ethical side of it, but the knowledge and the skills could have changed. So what does the professional body do there? And of course, the professional body, if it's doing its job properly, in my view, must be monitoring the continuing professional development, or on lifelong learning, if you like, of its members. Because if a person is holding themselves out as a chartered credit manager, Well, if they got their qualification 5 or 10 years ago, but they've not been updating their knowledge and their skills in the last 5 or 10 years, well, are you still competent? Well, you may have been learning on the job informally, but what I'm saying is here, there is a question mark, and who is to say whether you're still competent? And if you go and open your own business and you're offering your services or as a consultancy to clients in that field, yeah, and so the professional body's job has a very important, not just standard setting job, but for me, it has a very important regulatory role. If it's a proper professional body, and the regulatory role is to ensure that its members are up to date, and they're competent. And there should be some kind of complaint, if particularly if those members offer services directly to the public, to consumers, not just to other businesses. There should be a proper process of complaint that the members of the public can complain. So there's a public interest aspect as well, and that has a massive impact upon both society, positive impact on society in helping to protect consumers from incompetent professionals or rogue professionals. And at the same time, it's great for the professionals because it means that the competent ones are not being tarred with a brush, as we say, the same brush. Yeah. That it doesn't bring the whole profession into disrepute. If you take action to ensure that your members are up to date, what a reassurance to the public. And the ones who don't stay up to date, you either say, well, your grade of membership now falls back to a lower grade, or I'm afraid you have to leave, or we fine you, whatever it is. And there's a public action, and people can see that you are maintaining that standard. And that's good for the profession. It's good for the professionals who don't need to worry about that.
Yeah, and actually we are protecting, professional bodies are protecting society from those who use the nice, strong, I could even say cool word professional, just like say, I believe I am professional, so okay.
Yeah.
Everyone could say so, but can you demonstrate? And on the other side, what is important, I never thought this way, but thank you very much for sharing. Just to give an idea, you see, we live in a very, very, very fast moving, fast pacing world. And honestly, we don't have too much time to understand, to know other people. Like, obviously, with some experience, we can see that this or that person has that knowledge, experience, craft, and mastership. But the job done by professional bodies, they recognize that this or that person is equally unequal. So this is the shortcut from everyone who interacts with that person. Like knowing that this person is a credit professional, accounting professional, or any other respectful profession we have. Yes, thank you very much, Michael. This is like really enlargement of my knowledge.
No, good. I was going to just say about continuing professional development. A lot of people say now, professional bodies, they would arrange conferences and perhaps regional meetings and things like this, and you get your knowledge through those. Well, that's old-fashioned now. We don't need any of that anymore because you can get everything online, and you can get some great online learning, and the professional bodies themselves are now, of course, catching up, and I think many of them are doing some really good stuff now online. And but of course, at the end of the day, the problem with online learning that has no accreditation, no recognition by the professional body, if it's in your field, how do you know what the standard of that continuing professional development is? How do you know what people really learn from it? So again, this is where the accreditation of a professional body of learning programs that are provided by other people, not necessarily ones that the professional body provides itself, is also very, very important, and is a really good thing for the professionals, because if it's got that rubber stamp on it, you know that it's been checked out and it's got some value, and it's got, you know, it's enough value to get that recognition. So again, that's important, even in this kind of internet age, which a lot of people say, you know, why do I need a professional body now? I can get my learning elsewhere.
Well, we need something to rely on, at least for the, again, you mentioned already, for the consumers not to waste their time on their money,
Time, money, yeah,
efforts, everything. But having in mind that it might be a challenge for professional bodies to like cope and, you know, to cope with that, with those who believe they are professionals, because new bodies are rising. But what are the in general, what are the challenges of the professional bodies? What are the main challenges for the professional body? You mentioned internet, you mentioned exchange. So now people can exchange ideas, information, everything globally with with no limits. I can tell. I mean, we connected through the internet. Thanks to internet, we never meet each other. So, I mean, I don't believe this is really a challenge. But what are the challenges? What are the other challenges for the professional bodies you can see, you observe?
Well, that's a really good question. I've got to be careful here that I don't. We often say, you can say it's your hobby horse or your pet hate. my hobby horse or my pet hate is government interference, encroachment into the learning and world of professional skills and qualifications. And I actually gave a talk on this for the first time about 5 years ago, actually, in India. And India has education has really developed wonderfully over the last 20 to 30 years. But I was giving a speech there in an education conference, and I was appealing to them not to keep following our mistakes in the UK. You know, we hold us. We've got all this heritage, this wonderful heritage that we've just spoken about. You know, the guilds and the liveries and all the rest of it, the City and Guilds, RSA, and we've got hundreds of awarding organisations and hundreds of professional bodies. But the problem, we're always facing this problem of what do we do with young people? They get to the age of, say, 16 or even 14. You know, now nearly half of them going to university to go and get we talk about vocational degrees, but they have got a very strong academic core to them, because they are university degrees. By definition, they have to have academic rigor.
Yes.
But now the problem that often is, and then alongside that, you've got governments saying, well, the ones who don't go, they must be in full-time training of some kind at the age of, say, 16. Full-time, if they're not going to go to university or not go down an academic route, they must do other form of vocational technical education and training. Now, a lot of those young people would have started on a professional route at that stage. Many professions have access into that profession below degree level. You know, they can do some kind of foundation course. They can do it the old way, if you like, the way of the night school, the day release, or the block release, or doing it in the evenings. Online learning, it's all there. Professional bodies are still offering this sort of thing, but the government will not promote it. They promote instead the government stamped apprenticeship routes in the UK, and this happens in a number of European countries. Yeah, and there's no real. It should be an open presentation. It's not as if the government's in competition with professional bodies, but it acts as if it is. that it's saying, this is your choice when you get to 16. You either go this technical route or you go this, in the UK, the A-level route.
Mm-hmm.
And you do these new technical qualifications. By the way, I was on a professional panel, which was engaged to design the one for the accounting and finance technical pathway, because we've just done this revision again. Every 20 years, or sometimes 10 years, or 20 years, we completely revisit the whole thing, change it all, because it's fundamentally flawed. Instead of saying, look, let's start everyone on a professional career at this stage and work with the professional bodies, they want to bypass it and produce their own product. And young people don't find out about the professions. And it was about, I think, about 10 years ago, that a group of professional bodies, which was just a handful, there were 5 of us initially, I think. But I think in the end, we had about 30 professional bodies joined in. We formed a company called the Access to the Professions.
Mm-hmm.
And its sole purpose was to promote to young people, university graduates including, but mainly to young people in schools, the existence of the professions, who we are, how you can get into them. Because we felt we're going to have to do this job, because otherwise each profession's trying to do it individually, which is very expensive and inefficient. And we're fighting against the government, which produces its glossy literature and says, this is your route to your career. And the professional bodies hardly get a mention. I mean, they really don't. And so I hope now you get the picture. It is my hobby horse. And I do think, but I do seriously think it's a major impediment, a major problem in not just in the UK, but in a number of countries. And I say India's kind of going down the same route. It's government reform of education. It's all well-meaning, but they keep meddling in it instead of working with the professional bodies, promoting those routes which already exist and are very well designed and absolutely up to date because they've been designed by professionals who know what the skills are and the knowledge required for those jobs and those professions.
I grew up in Soviet Union, and I mean, in our times, having higher education, which is equivalent of university degree, or something like, desirable for everyone. So parents were doing their best to get their child, through that university degree. But at the same time, when 23 years old person coming then trying to get a job, they got to their office and they have to learn everything from the very, very, very beginning. Especially in my personal case, where I got engineering degree, and we were prepared, and obviously I never regret about my diploma. I never regret about education I had, because engineering is very interesting thing, and I found many interesting things to apply to credit management profession from engineering. But at the same time, you see, if you're not becoming an engineer, then you have to learn everything from the scratch. It's like finance, like business, like everything. So again, higher education is one thing. And what I just, as a maybe unexpected conclusion, but I do believe that the merger between academics and professional education is still yet to come. Need to find that common ground where practical part, where the craft and science will finally merger. Will finally merge and, finally create, that professionals, which I would be happy to see myself.
Yeah, actually, we've got a fairly good example of that in the UK now with our nursing profession. But there is a caveat, I will say as well with this. But, You know, all of our nurses now, nurse training, they're all undergraduates. That wasn't the case up until about 15 years ago.
Mhm.
So the local universities to where the hospitals are responsible for all of the trainee nurses become students of that university, and the university takes responsibility for the academic learning and their success on that program. But of course, the hospitals manage all of their practical side, and they are, at the end of the day, they're training on the job as well as having blocks of study
Yeah.
outside of that. But it's a wonderful example of how to mix the academic with the professional. But the downside of that is that the bar really for entry has gone up in terms of academic achievement to get onto the programs. So in getting homegrown young people enough who want to be nurses, whereas before that you could qualify at a lower level and have a slightly lower status, but that's all gone. And so we've got a lower supply of young people coming into nursing because we've set a bar that's high instead of, and we've changed the job role so that it's more technical than it was before. We're requiring more knowledge and greater skills, whereas there could have still been a place. So we've kind of moved everything up, which is great, but we've now created a skills gap and a jobs gap. We haven't got enough young people coming through. Homegrown. We have to steal nurses from other countries.
That's absolutely downside for the industry, but at the same time, have a look at the professional development. Thank you very much for mentioning that, because I got a friend who is neurosurgist, and that's it's just like astrophysics. And his father is also a neurosurgeon, and what his father did to him, because he was heading a clinic, he's still head of that clinic. He sent him for the nursing, to pushing on him to learn the basics, the essentials of profession. He said about half a year working there during his medical university and doing all that other things. He was learning how to do very, very basic things. And, I was always, impressed. Like if you take a restaurant, and the owner of the restaurant who knows every single nail, every single piece of wood in his restaurant and how this business runs, a farmer, any other things, like lots of things, and people stay within the profession. Obviously, nowadays people are changing professions much more often. Different situations.
Yes, that's right.
At the same time, real professional development is coming from that basics and to the tops. Anyway, we need to get there.
Yeah.
We need to get somebody's supposed to take care of that. And this is, again, with all challenges, professions do develop, and professional bodies do develop. And currently, obviously, it's not only interest, it's also an exchange of ideas, and getting together with your fellow professionals. How do you see the future of professional bodies, assuming that thanks to technologies, thanks to the development of society, we are getting more and more and more and more global, but at the same time, we cannot, when people speak about this, these conspiracy theories, they say there is a global government. And one wise man says, like, do you see this? Like mobile producers cannot agree on which should be that sticker, to charge the phone because every producer has its own. Do you believe the government, the global government could exist? The same story we've got like in credit management, because it's still a big discussion between organizations to recognize each other qualification in different countries. It's still a challenge, but if we dream about better, the world better than now, how would in that better world new professional communities, professional bodies would look like?
That's a really good question. I mean, if I could turn the clock back 10 years ago, with the I'm trying to think of the right term, because we didn't understand the word portal then 10 years ago, I don't think, and maybe just about what a portal was in terms of the web, hosted systems.
Yes.
In terms of accounting, it was all done offline. Yeah, you had your own software on your own hardware in your own office. Certainly, sorry.
Called calculator. Normally, you got a calculator, or that thing. I don't know if you use that. I didn't.
No.
Pencil. They're like,
of course, if we
I mean, we take accounting in journal. I mean, physical journal with handwriting.
Yeah, don't get me started on the technological changes, because I'll go back to all of that as well. I'll take you through. Excuse me. It'll bore everyone silly. But no, what I was getting to was I think when cloud, the sort of term of the cloud came along, cloud accounting, obviously in our field, but cloud this, cloud that, hosted systems, web portal kind of systems and things, and then very, very cheap online courses came along, free courses. We know Coursera, all these other ones, free courses, cheap courses, special offers. In UK, we have something, I don't know whether it's an American thing or not, John will know, but whether it's a Groupon, and highly discounted programs. So it used to be things like learn the accounting software, the biggest one in the UK, learn it in 20 hours, which people like me knew was absolutely impossible to learn it safely and securely in 20 hours, to be sure that what you produced was accurate, and so on and so forth. So, but people would buy a course for £50 when actually they needed a course that would cost them £200 or £250. The reality was, if they really wanted to learn it and be competent in it, and I think professional bodies at that point said, who's going to take our exams anymore? They're just going to think they can learn it all on YouTube, or they can get these free courses, and it's all going to go pear-shaped. And I think a lot of professional bodies, they were starting to see reduced numbers. And still professional bodies now have, not all of them by any means, but quite a few of them have this aging population problem, where they've got a large group of people, age 50 years and over, which I'm one of them, who in large numbers, because we joined at a time when that really was seen as very important. This is the pre-internet age. We joined in the pre-internet age, so this was the only thing available to us. Yeah. Whereas now professional bodies are competing for people's attention as a way to continue your development. That you can't just skip from one job to another. One of the most secure ways to develop still is to get a qualification through a credible organization. Trust is still, it will always be absolutely essential. Yeah, trust, and trust is from credibility. So if you have a credible external stamp on your ability, not just references which could have been fixed with people who references are not always very reliable. But for jobs, if you show that you're qualified, your CPD's up to date, you're serious about your commitment to your development, and you've got a CPD record you can show people. These are really valuable things. Always will be valuable, I think, Andrea. I think there's no replacement for these. This is the good news. And as I say, what in the last 10, 15 years, when 10, 15 years ago, people say, well, is this the end for professional bodies, really? People are not really saying that anymore. That's not what I'm hearing anymore. And yet, here we are with AI on our doorstep. And that's not still, no, we still need people, and we're still going to need people for quite a long time. And particularly in the service sector where, robots can't do everything. They can do a lot, but you still need people to design them and update the content. Sorry, there's still stuff around the edges and still the thinking. So without minimizing that, I think there's still the same core roles of the professional bodies is still there. Pursuit of excellence, regulation, credibility, all of these things, they're not going away. And it's just a much noisier marketplace, a much noisier environment. And that's why I said earlier about the government, the last thing you need is the government just ignoring you and pretending you're not there. They need to be with us and working with us as professions. And if they can do that well, and we most of us are on good terms with the universities, and we don't see ourselves as competitors with them. We see ourselves as complementing each other, I think, because many students go on to fully qualify in their professions after university, and it's just an alternative routes. We don't really compete in that sense. So yeah, I still think I'm still very optimistic, but then I am a glass half full kind of person as opposed to half empty. So I'm always a positive thinker and thinking there'll always be a solution somewhere, if not several.
That's, by the way, my favorite saying for last. Yes, there is always a solution. Not always good, not always best, not necessarily best, but there is always a solution. And I like echoing you a bit and just developing a bit one step further what you just said, and remember in our discussion, I believe in that better world, in that better future. There will be finally a merger between academic and professional education, where we will merge that knowledge from the very, very beginning. That's what I'm trying to do, by the way. So I'm trying to deliver to people who I am educating, like the most important developments in science. So seeing that science should not be something existing on the island on some way that, I don't know, in stratosphere, and then fall down from time to time on us, with a blessing or something. No, it's supposed to be used something like that. And for that, many people in profession call me theorist. I said, sorry, I'm not good enough in that. Unfortunately, I'd love to, but I cannot. But at the same time, you're supposed to remember, don't remember it after that saying, but there is nothing more practical than good theory. I believe that merger one day will still happen. And this will be my last and last question. I will combine it with something because we both got relations with IAPBE, where you are honoris president. I got only good words about that association because we are working with them for last 3 to 5 years. But a question, why people suppose still to enter, IAPBE, other associations, why we as people, like I am, and the average, if I am in UK, or Andriy Sredny, if I am in Ukraine, or in any other part of the world, why people should still join professional bodies, get recognized, and why should we do that?
Yeah, I think without wanting to repeat what I said, and I can't emphasize it enough. So this is another opportunity to do so.
Absolutely.
Trust and credibility How do people know that you are competent? How do people know? How do people know you're up to date with what the technical knowledge and skills are in your profession? And if you have clients, if your business has customers, if you're even in your employer wants to be assured and wants to know, how do they know which courses to fund for you to train and be trained in? And so having courses available that have the accreditation of a professional body, IAPBE being an example, is a great service for them because this organization like IAPBE is credible. Yeah, it has somebody like myself. I'm just using this as an example, of course. As a president, I wouldn't be an honorary president of any organization unless I was assured that the programs that they offer directly or they accredit have been developed by professionals, they're up to date, and that their assessment standard is at the right level. Now, I've had the pleasure of being. I've been to Ukraine a few years ago now, 6-7 years ago, and I met the head of the tax authority in Ukraine, in Kyiv, who said these wonderful things about the training organization, which is a partner of IAPBE, and this is the credibility of this organization. That's the kind of thing which is confirms the standard of the training, and therefore the certification which comes from IAPBE is being given on the basis that that is the recognition from that authority, and that's important. So this is why, for any young person, anybody on their professional career, whether they're a member of already or not of an organization, get yourself recognized professionally, show your commitment to your professional competence and your commitment to give something back. I mean, we haven't spoken a lot about that, but in those early days, of the guilds and so on, they saw that they were doing an important role in society. So who are going to be the people writing the curriculum, what needs to be taught and learned and assessed in the future? It could be you. Yeah, if you're not a member now, you could become a member, and then you could give something back, which is okay. Yeah, I could contribute to that. Or you can offer to lead a webinar to share your knowledge with other professionals, perhaps who are in other countries. They're not your competitors. There's always a means through that professional body to contribute as well. But I come back to the fundamental one. It's assurance of the standard that you've reached to become a member, and then assurance of your ongoing lifelong learning in your profession. Unless you've got that professional badge on it, what standard is it?
Yeah, combining again, I'm making this combination, but they're growing up in my mind. The demand for trust will never be gone.
No.
The demand for trust will never be gone. And if somebody say why this discussion is about credit chats, let me remind my audience and let me remind everyone who was listening to it that the word credit derives from el credere, which means trust in Latina. And no transaction happened without trust. And Malcolm, thank you very much. It was really great discussion, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
I don't see that many questions, but we still got a 1 minute to ask. If you would like to join us, please switch on your video, switch on your mic, and ask a question if you have one. Yes.
Yes.
What?
Hello, Andrew. Hello, Malcolm.
Hello, Lyubov. Lovely to see you.
I'm glad to see you. I have not questions, but I thank you, Andrew, for this meeting, and Malcolm. Thanks for taking about English professional traditions, and special thanks for the kind words about IAPBE. And thanks us for sharing your experience. And I'm glad to see you, and I look forward to next meeting. Thanks very much.
Definitely. Definitely. Oh, thank you. That's very kind of you. And it's been an absolute pleasure. And I say it's an honor to be asked to do this. And I'm speaking about something that I'm very passionate about. So thank you very much indeed. And I can't wait to see you again, hopefully in London.
Thanks. I'll see you.
See you. And well, Lyubov, thank you very much for your, for joining us. As I promised, today we have to finish in an hour. We nearly, surprisingly, I don't know how this happened, because normally I get so much excited about the topic we speak, so credit charts never end in 1 hour. So today I'll try to be as good as my word. Thank you very much to every one of you who spent your Friday night, or nearly Friday night, with us. Thank you very much, Malcolm. Thank you very much, Lyubov, for today's great discussion about the professional community, which I believe will continue to live because they bring so much opportunities. And Malcolm just, touched the sensitive string on my heart, because certain time ago when I finished my profession, not professional career, but my corporate career, and started to do a bit of education, I said exactly what you just said. Like, my profession made me who I am, and my professional organizations, professional bodies which I'm working with, give me a great chance to pay back to my profession and help others to get there.
Yeah.
Have a nice
Absolutely.
weekend. It's been a great pleasure. And as a matter of tradition, since credit is still a relevant word because we are in credit charts, I wish everyone to have as much sales as it is possible, as low losses as you are lucky, or which could be said in French, bon crédit. In our case, could be bon trust. See you. Thank you very much.
Bon crédit. Thank you. Thank you very much indeed.